Hey divers, Alec Peirce, Scuba Tech Tips, and here we go! Dry suits. You guys have been bugging me with dry suits for months and months and months, and I'm really sorry it's taken so long, but there are a few reasons for that. I was away, we have a lot of other topics, and the dry suit series that Kevin and I want to do in the next 4 or 5 series, not necessarily sequentially, but there'll be about 3 or 4 dry suit episodes, okay, to cover everything about dry suits that you wanted to know. We finally got started. Anyways, so here we go. Now, this episode, dry suits in the beginning. Okay, so what I want to do, through this, I'm going to talk about dry suits, different types, features, costs, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's important, I really do, particularly because of my age, I think it's important that you all realize that dry suits weren't invented last week. They weren't even invented last year, or even 10 years ago. Now, dry suits have been around since the 40s, maybe earlier than that, earlier than the 40s. But anyway, said the 40s or 50s. That's 100 years almost, 80 years. Long time. Now, the dry suits that we had back then, I say we because in the 50s and 60s I wore a dry suit. The dry suits we had back then were not like the dry suits of today. Their intention was to keep you dry and warm. Well, that's the same as today. But the way they accomplished it was a lot different, let me tell you about that. We did have wetsuits. The wetsuits weren't very good, but they got better. So now wetsuits are the most common exposure. Dry suits back then were simply a rubber suit that covered your whole body and kept you dry. Now, if you know anything about rubber, you know that rubber is not a good insulator. So if you put rubber against your skin, then you'll feel cold. So we had to wear something underneath the suit. Now, we didn't have a fancy local dive store with all kinds of down and thermofill and what's that special stuff, Kevin? All that special stuff to keep, all that money. We didn't have any of that stuff. We had cotton, and we had wool, and we had stuff like that. And you know, one thing we did have was long underwear. Exactly right. We used to wear long underwear. So we would get the best quality, the thickest, warmest long underwear that we could find, and we put that on our bodies. Bathing suit, and then long underwear on our bodies. That's right. And then we climbed into our dry suit. Yeah, it was really very simple, because you would get your dry suit bottoms. They look just like this. Dry suit bottoms, made of rubber. This is rubber. This is ordinary rubber. You can see it's not too thick. It's thick enough to be tough. It's got a boot on the bottom, hence dry, right? Nothing gets in there. And so you put this on over top of your long under. Put it on. Now this is really tall. You see how tall? That's just coming right up to your armpits, like so. Okay, so you got your dry suit bottoms on. Not like today's, huh? And then you got your dry suit top. Yeah, your dry suit top. It's the same thing. Exactly the same thing, just like this. And you put the dry suit top on, put your arms in, pop your neck through, and you got your dry suit top on. All of this is over top of your long underwear. Now again, you'll notice that this dry suit top is really long. It comes a long ways down. Well, because you have to make a seal. So you would take this edge of the top and the top edge of the pant, you match them, and then you'd start to roll. And you roll this down with the pant inside and roll all the way around. Sometimes it took 2 or 3 divers to help you get it all rolling. So you had all the way around your tummy, you had a roll. There was actually a plastic ring, a hard plastic ring, sort of like a custom fitted hula hoop, bit like a hula hoop, that went around your tummy. And you could use that to get sometimes it's hard to get the roll started. So you get this ring in there and then get the rubber started and roll and roll and roll and roll. And finally you ended up with this roll around your tummy of dry suit material. And the 2 pieces of material rolled together several times made a pretty good seal, kind of like a Ziploc seal. So there you go. Top and bottom completely sealed. Rubber around your wrist, rubber around your neck. And then when you're all ready to go in the water, you get your dry suit hood. Now again, it's just thin rubber, just a thin piece of rubber. You could make one of these out of inner tube, I suppose, but this is an original from the 60s dry suit from the 1960s, pure gum rubber. This, by the way, what I've just shown you is extremely rare. Not that there weren't a lot of them, it's just that pure gum rubber doesn't last 40, 50, 60 years. It dries out, it gets sticky, rots and falls apart. But this one is almost in perfect shape. I've kept it in perfect shape all the year. So then you put something over your head. We would use a welder's beanie cap or something like that. It's sort of like a balaclava. And we put this over top of her head to keep her head warm. And there you were. There was your dry suit. And off you went diving. Now sometimes we got a bit of water inside the suit, but not too much. And the long underwear kept us pretty warm inside there. It wasn't great in really, really cold water. We needed more insulation, and there's a limit to how much this would stretch. But that's what the old suit was like. Here's a catalog, actually. This catalog is by Aurora Pro. Aurora Aviation was a company in, I think they're up in Connecticut. And then for several years they made scuba equipment, you see. And this catalog is quite rare and quite valuable. And the regulators are also extremely rare and quite valuable too. I have a complete set of them actually in my vintage collection. Maybe I'll show those in my, what's it called? Vintage Scuba. Watch my other playlist, Vintage Scuba, you might see it. But here in the Aurora Pro catalog, right on this page, page 5, you can see here a diver, just as I just described to you. There's a diver dressed in his Aurora Pro dry suit. Am I holding that still enough, Kevin? And down at the bottom you see these rings, these rubber rings that you could buy. You see? That you would put around your waist. There's a pair of gloves as well. I have those gloves. I didn't bring them with me. I have those gloves as well. And the hood, this hood that he has on, this one is not attached. But you could buy this with an attached hood if you wanted to. And I have the price list. 1960s price list. Now you know the dry suits today are $1,000. A good one is going to be $2,000. It would not surprise me if somebody paid $3,000 for a dry suit. Okay, there we go. Rubber suit. It wasn't called a dry suit, just a rubber suit. We didn't know what dry. Rubber suit. Rubber suit. Brown. Just like that one. With separate hood. Yeah, just like that one. $29.95. $29.95. That's $29.95. 5 nickels, 5 cents short of 30 bucks. That's what it is. Now this is 1961 money. That's about $240,000. No, I'm kidding. But $29.95 got you one of those rubbers. You could get it with the hood attached. You could get it with the hood and the shirt in one piece for an extra $1.50 if you wanted to. And all the gloves and everything else are on there. So there you go. 1961, a dry suit. Early dry suits. And they were like that for many years. They were like that until, oh gosh, into the late 50s, into the 60s. And then a gentleman by the name of Frank White in Vancouver, Canada, other places as well, started to develop the dry suit as we know it today, where you have actually buoyancy control. You may have noticed that this suit had no kind of buoyancy control. As you went deeper and deeper with this suit, it squeezed you more and more and more. You had to try to be careful when you put it on to smooth out all the wrinkles of the underwear and the suit. Because if you went very deep, 50, 60, 70 feet, it would squeeze, and you come to the surface later and take it off, you have a long red welt on your leg or your arm where it had been squeezing you. So it wasn't quite the same as dry suits of today. And we also had to have, very important, we had to have a can of cornstarch, or some divers used talcum powder. Cornstarch was a little more expensive, but a little bit better, a little drier. But cornstarch was used. You spread cornstarch over the suit afterwards, after it was dry, and that would preserve it and keep it dry. Now, it did not have to be Canada cornstarch. But of course, since the water's so cold up here, if you had Canada cornstarch on your dry suit, it was better. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, it was a little bit different back then. So that's where it all started. And what we're going to do now with our dry suit series is next time, I'm going to show you the 2 types of dry suits that are common today. There really only are 2 types. Lots of different models, lots of different features, which we'll discuss. But there are 2 basic types of dry suits in use today. And we'll get started on that. The 2 different types, how they're different, if one has advantages over the other, all the information you need to know. And then we'll get into the rest of dry suit use, care, costs, and you'll know all I know about dry suits. But I thought you might find that interesting. In the beginning, talk to you again real soon about dry suits. Alec Peirce Scuba. Tech Tips.